So we're working on the third column of the student learning map, which is all about natural selection in action. So essentially what this column is about is, since we haven't seen one species evolve into a second species at this point, what have we seen with current populations that make us think that natural selection is working in current populations? In order to do that, we need to take a step back and look at how we currently define evolution. And since we've made a few steps since Darwin, we now define evolution in genetics terms. So the question is, how is evolution defined in genetic terms? The short answer to that is that evolution is defined by changes in allele frequency. That may seem like a big step from where Darwin was at when he said that species change over time. But remember, Darwin didn't know about DNA and that it was the hereditary information, so he certainly didn't know about alleles. But if you follow our knowledge and what we've learned so far throughout the year, we can get to where Darwin was at, because changes in allele frequency lead to changes in genotype frequencies. Changes in genotype frequencies lead to changes in phenotype frequencies. And changes in phenotype frequencies mean that species are changing over time. And now we're where Darwin was at. So the next question would be, well, how do we get allele frequencies to change? Well, allele frequencies can change in nature due to 5 major forces. First, natural selection can cause allele frequencies to change. If there is some allele that makes an organism more fit, more likely to survive and reproduce, then that allele is more likely to show up in the next generation, and since it's more likely, we're changing the frequency of that allele. Non-random mating can also play a role in this. Non-random mating is when there is a preferred phenotype to mate with, whether it's a mating ritual or physical appearance or whatever it may be. There's something that makes one organism more desirable to mate with than another. Whatever it is that makes that one organism more desirable may be genetically determined, and if it is, those genes get passed on to the next generation more often, so we see a change in allele frequencies. Mutations can also affect allele frequencies. Mutation would result in the creation of an all-new allele. So if we've got an all-new allele, we've definitely just changed the allele frequencies based on that. I'm going to skip down here to immigration and emigration because they can change allele frequencies. If we have a new organism that comes in to the population with a new allele, that's kind of like adding mutation, so we're changing the allele frequency. The same token, we can have organisms leaving through emigration and taking an allele with them, and that's going to change allele frequencies. And last but not least, it can always happen through chance if we have small enough populations, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So, bottom line is, how is evolution defined in genetic terms? Well, changes in allele frequency is evolution, and it can be caused by natural selection, non-random mating, mutations, small populations, or immigration and emigration. So one of the other lesson essential questions from that particular column, it's not the next one in order, but it is on there, and it's very relevant right now. What conditions are needed to maintain genetic equilibrium? I'm going to cover that one now as well. So let's take a closer look at genetic equilibrium. When we say genetic equilibrium, what we mean is that the allele frequencies don't change. They remain the same. This was an idea that was first proposed by 2 scientists with the last name of Hardy and Weinberg. And as a result, it's often called Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium instead of just genetic equilibrium. It's synonymous, so the two mean the same thing. And essentially what it means is that allele frequencies don't change. So this is something that goes against evolution, the idea that allele frequencies don't change. We just defined evolution as saying a change in allele frequencies. So genetic equilibrium means there's no evolution going on. So one of the things that comes up is, well, how in the world can we get populations to be at genetic equilibrium? Well, Hardy and Weinberg came up with 5 criteria that a population would have to be facing in order to be at genetic equilibrium. First of all, they said there could be no natural selection. Natural selection changes gene frequencies, and we can't have that because we want genetic equilibrium. There has to be random mating. Every organism has an equal chance of reproducing. There can be no mutations, no immigration or emigration to change allele frequencies, and we would need to have a large population. If you think about it, these 5 sound familiar because they're the exact opposite. They're the exact opposite of the 5 that we just said cause changes in allele frequencies. So Hardy-Weinberg said basically, look, if you don't have those 5, you're not going to have evolution. So you'd be at genetic equilibrium. So the question becomes, when does this happen in nature? Well, it doesn't. And that's kind of the point. You're never going to meet all of these in a population in nature. And because of that, you're never going to be at genetic equilibrium in nature, so evolution must be occurring in nature. And in fact, we believe that it does.